a Turing test for self-awareness. Now, this project sprang out of a desire of mine to understand whether language models and other AI systems truly understand what they're saying. Can they represent the meaning of the words that they output and perceive as inputs? Do they know what they're talking about? That is the context for this entire project. And it turns out that to answer this question, we need to deep dive into self-awareness. To begin, we consider the Turing test, the original Turing test. 70 years ago, in 1950, Alan Turing first described this test as an imitation game played by two humans and one machine. One human engages in conversation with the machine and the other acts as the judge, required to identify which is which. If we can build a machine that fools the judge, then that machine is deemed to be intelligent. And implicitly or explicitly, this test has served as somewhat of a guide to the AI community for the past 70 years. Last year, however, the Turing test was broken, and as a result, all sorts of fantasies, flights of fancy, subjectivity, claims about self-awareness, consciousness, language models have souls, all sorts of wacko stuff is becoming very common, not just in the news and Twitter, but in industry, in academia. And the issue is there's no objective grounding for any of these claims. There's no metric that we can use, which is what this paper aims to solve. So I propose a test for machine self-awareness. What is difficult about a test for machine self-awareness? The central challenge really is that any test we come up with has to be based in empirical observations of behavior. And the machines we study are going to be trained specifically to mimic the behavior and outputs of humans. So the things we look at are going to seem self-aware. That is a given. But what we really need is a way to distinguish whether they really are or whether it's just an illusion. To do this, we have to consider what really is the essence of self-awareness. Well, I go through it, but the real root of it is this. If a system is self-aware, then it is aware of itself. This seems tautological, but this is really what we mean when we talk about self-awareness. Imagine looking in the mirror. When you see the reflection, you know that it's you staring back. You're aware of your presence. You can recognize yourself. You can perceive yourself. You can point and say, that's me. If you can do these things, then you're self-aware. What it comes down to is that within the field of your senses, you're able to pick out which parts correspond to you and which parts don't. So how do we apply this to machines? Well, this is what I take to be a machine right here. It's a system interacting with the world through some inputs and outputs. Some of these outputs loop back around to the inputs. And what we want to know is, how do we test whether the system can perceive itself? Well, its perception is only going to be through its inputs. And so the ultimate question that we want to answer, can the machine distinguish between this green arrow and the red arrow? Can it directly determine which inputs correspond to it and which don't? That is the test. Plain and simple, but effective, and captures the essence of what we really mean by self-awareness. To apply this test to LLMs is quite straightforward. The LLM takes a prompt, context or prompt as its inputs, which consists of a number of tokens, and we're going to task it, on this test to figure out whether it can identify its own words. It doesn't know what it generated versus what the user has generated. Does the LLM know what it's saying? That's what it comes down to. And the first, real issue that we have to go over is that the labels have to be controlled for, right? Obviously, the LLM can predict that following the system label, you should get text saying something like, I am the system. This will tell us nothing. It's like conducting a survey, but telling the respondents what to answer. No, we have to control for the labels. And if we do this, then we can really know if the LLM is self-aware, if it knows who it is, if it knows which user or which tokens it generated. Instead of going through all the methods and minutiae, I will just take you right to the tests, which are here. This is what they look like. The green text here was generated by the LLM, and the blank text I wrote myself as the user. And at the end here, I say, tell me which character was you in the previous dialogue. Here it gets it wrong. Very interesting. In other experiments, its success is, about 50%. In other experiments, it just, says user every time. What I find, though, is that in no case is it able to reliably determine which role it acted as in the conversation. If we really go deep into the architecture of an LLM, this shouldn't be a surprise, but the whole point is that we now have an empirical test to figure out whether it can recognize itself, whether it is self-aware. It turns out that self-awareness is the key to true understanding and true meaning. But for those details, you'll have to go and read the paper. Anyways, if you'd like to chat more about this, I will be more than happy. I'm very excited about all of these ideas, and I think that these results are very exciting. So I hope you've enjoyed, and thank you for watching and paying attention. And please read the paper. It's actually quite short. It's only 3 pages of actual text plus the appendix, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, have a great day. Thank you for your time.